All right, welcome to a brief PowerPoint presentation in which I'll share with you a couple of writing samples. These are from a scientific article. One is written in the way that we're all accustomed to with stilted scientific language. The other uses some simple changes in how we use grammar to make the writing more accessible and clear. And we'll talk about each of these things as we move along here. First, take a look at this, read it through, and think to yourself about what makes this difficult to read. And you can pause the audio if you need to. All right, let's move on to Smith's version of this article. You can see that there are some issues, I think, with Brown's version. I'm sure you don't have trouble spotting them, but I think you'll agree that this is pretty typical of the way that um, scientific writing is very typical of scientific writing we see today. And, uh, and there are clearly some problems with this. Let's read Smith's version, and then we'll talk about what Smith did to make this article uh, read more easily and clearly. All right, no doubt that this is easier to read, and there are specific reasons for this, and I want you to pay close attention to some of these changes in how the language is used here. Simple, really pretty straightforward changes that have a big payoff. Paragraph length is the first thing. If you look at Brown's version, a big block of dense text, not unusual in scientific writing. One big paragraph. It really is rather intimidating. Smith's version, three simpler, clearer paragraphs, visually a lot less intimidating, much easier to work through. In the newspaper business, we call this airing out copy, giving the reader a chance to breathe and really take in the information. Brown's version, there is a tendency when copy is presented in a long paragraph like this, there is a tendency for the reader to rush through it. Smith's version allows the reader to slow down. Sentence length is another major difference. I'll read Brown's version, and you can tell what some of the problems are with this version. In the first experiment of the series using mice, it was discovered that total removal of the adrenal glands affects reduction of aggressiveness, and that aggressiveness in adrenalectomized mice is restorable to the level of intact mice by treatment with corticosterone. What did you hear me doing there? You heard me trying to catch my breath, and that is a problem. When the reader has to pause while they're reading through a sentence, it's likely that a period is necessary. Breaking up paragraphs is one of the best way. Breaking up sentences, long sentences, is one of the best way to lend clarity to your writing. Smith's version, we see the first experiment in our series with mice showed that total removal of the adrenal glands reduces aggressiveness. Period. So um, I'm going to be asking you to probably be overly aggressive, actually, in writing shorter sentences. You'll find that it lends considerable clarity to your writing and gives the reader a break. You'll hear me talking quite a bit during this first week about active versus passive voice. You are accustomed to writing in passive voice as a scientist. It has long been believed that writing in passive voice removes you a step from the research and increases at least the appearance of objectivity. But writing in passive voice comes with a price. Um, Passive on the left in Brown's version. In the first experiment of the series using mice, it was discovered that uh, becomes the first experiment in our series with mice showed So we have a strong subject first in the sentence. We're really trying to stick closely to subject, verb, object. Experiment is the subject, showed is the verb. Further on, we see effects reduction of. That becomes that's passive, and active, and rewritten actively becomes a single verb, reduces. One of the major things you'll notice with active voice as opposed to passive voice is that you save a lot of words. Look at the difference in the length between these two. So I'll be asking you to write more actively, subject, verb, object, and it's just the way we view the world, really. It's the way our brains are wired. When you're at a football game, you see a guy chowing down on a hot dog. You don't say or you don't think to yourself that that hot dog is being eaten by that man. You think that guy is eating that hot dog. That's the way our brains are wired, and you might as well take advantage of that when you write, especially when you write science journalism. You're going to be better off. Your writing is going to be stronger if you write an active voice. We are going to think hard about getting rid of jargon, or at least being very judicious in our use of jargon. Work at perhaps defining jargon if we do want to use it. I'm not saying not to use jargon or scientific terminology. I'm saying you have to ask yourself, is this going to be understood by my reader? I want you to really think, first of all, of the reader, the person on the other end. You're not writing, in this case, for a professor. You're not writing for peers when you're doing science journalism. You're writing for a lay reader, a non-scientific audience, and you want to make sure that you give them every advantage that you can give them to understand your science. So in Brown, adrenalectomized mice becomes mice that had their adrenals taken out, a little longer but clear, by producing an ACTH-mediated condition of decreased androgen levels. ACTH-mediated is a little ambiguous, and when you change that to causes androgen levels to drop, by raising the levels of ACTH, it causes androgen levels to drop. You get rid of the jargon, make what's happening clear. Clauses are a huge issue. We have, in our academic writing especially, let clauses often get out of control. We, as I said before, we're trying very hard to make these, in our sentences, to follow the subject, verb, object to the basic architecture. We're going to break our sentences down to that basic subject, verb, object order, and we do that for a reason, because it allows the reader to track a sentence more clearly and easily. One of the big problems is with syntax. If we see a complicated sentence, one with a long clause, we've generally put too much information between the subject and the verb. This is an example of that on the left from Brown. Nevertheless, comma, since adrenalectomy is followed by an increase in the release of adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, comma, and since ACTH has been reported by Brain, 1973, to decrease the aggressiveness of intact mice, comma, it is possible that the effects of adrenalectomy on aggressiveness are a function of the concurrent increased levels of ACTH. We see two clauses there. By the time you get to the verb phrase in this sentence down towards the bottom, you've forgotten what happened up at the top of the sentence. So you want to try to at least rein in your clauses, make them shorter, and make sure you don't put too many words between that subject and the verb. Or if you do, that you try to make it as clear as possible. Often your best bet, as we've said earlier, is to use my favorite punctuation mark of all, the period, and create two sentences. So you see the difference here on the right with Smith's version. Didn't really remove the clause, but certainly got it under control.